At one point in Star Trek, something very unusual happened. Spock smiled. Not just a polite expression, not a subtle shift in logic. He laughed, he relaxed, he even fell in love. Now, if you know anything about Spock, you know that's not normal. So what happened? In the original series episode, This Side of Paradise, the crew encounters strange spores from a planet's plant life. These spores don't harm the crew, but they do something far more fascinating. They remove pain, they remove stress, they remove internal conflict. And in doing so, they remove the very thing that drives people forward. When Spock is exposed, something remarkable happens. For the first time, he is no longer suppressing his human side. He's not fighting emotion, he's experiencing it fully. And the result? A version of Spock that is calm, content, and completely unlike anything we've seen before. He smiles, he laughs, he embraces connection. He becomes human. Now here's where things get interesting. Years later, in a completely different Star Trek film, there's a throwaway joke where Captain Kirk claims Spock once took a little too much LDS in the 1960s. It's a funny line, but it also raises a fascinating question. What if that joke wasn't entirely a joke? Because what we saw in that episode wasn't so different from how people describe certain altered states of consciousness. Heightened emotion, reduced anxiety, a sense of peace, a feeling of connection. In other words, Spock may not have taken anything in the traditional sense, but he experienced something very similar. And here's the deeper question. If you could remove all stress, all fear, all internal conflict, would you? Because in that episode, everyone who was affected by the spores didn't want to leave. They were happy, perfectly happy. And that was the problem, because without struggle, there's no growth. Without conflict, there's no progress. Even Spock, in his most human state, had to be pulled back to reality. And when he returned, that peace was gone, replaced once again by discipline, logic, and control. So maybe the question isn't just what happened to Spock. Maybe the question is, what would happen to us? If you've got thoughts on this or ideas for future stories, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Pull up a chair, warm your hands by the fire, and stay curious, because the fire never fades as long as people keep showing up. I'm Christy, and I'll see you next time.